right. We are together again. We're having a panel today. We are on LinkedIn and YouTube. Misha Saffron here. Hello, everybody. And I'm excited to bring up my guest. I've got Brenda Meller from brendameller.com and Getting a Piece of the Pie on LinkedIn. Sarah, did I say that right, Brenda?
Close enough. If the funny thing is my website is mellermarketing.com, but I bought brendameller.com, which redirects to Meller Market for that exact reason, in case somebody looks up my name instead of my business. So you're great. You do good.
And I have the same thing. You can go to mishasaffron.com and it shows up on Seek. So there you have it. And Sarah Epping, is it Aisling Group? Is that how you say it?
I'm having some technical difficulties I'm going to try and fix. So I'll be right back with you.
Okay, we'll have you come back. All right. And Maxine Legal from Thrive Inclusively. And
yes.
Hello, Maxine.
Hello, great to be here. Thank you.
I'm so happy that y'all are here. We may or may not have Greg. I know he was in transit and was going to try to pop in and be with us. But we're basically, let me add Sarah back. Okay. So everyone, we are talking about empathy is a superpower, not a liability. So just in that, okay, I'm going to ask each person to give a miniature introduction of who you are. I did make QR codes for people to be able to reach out to you on LinkedIn. So we're going to be sampling that technology in just a moment. But I want you to do a miniature introduction and then share with our audience, when you hear the word empathy, what comes up for you? So who would like to start?
I can go. It's fine. So
QR code. There it is.
That's really great. So thank you so much for having me. It's great to be on again. Last month's topic was great, so I know today's going to be just as good. So my name is Maxine Legal. I'm CEO and founder of Thrive Inclusively. I started my company in March of 2024. We really focus on helping individuals, organizations, and leaders become their best self and to reach their full potential. So I do speaking, I do consulting, and I also do coaching. And I enjoy really challenging people around their growth mindset and really challenging any limiting mindsets they might have. I think that all of us are placed on this earth to serve a purpose, and we're meant to accomplish great things. But I think a lot of times our own thinking gets in the way. And so I really love to talk with people around things like limited mindsets, imposter syndrome. What are the things that we can do to really build confidence? And the only other thing I want to mention is also with organizations, really helping organizations to do the same thing, right? And really think about, how does this organization want to grow? What do they see themselves? What is the culture like? And how can we make that culture better? That's a little bit about me. In terms of empathy as a superpower, I do believe that it definitely is a superpower. And a lot of times empathy gets a bad rap because people think that because someone is empathic that they're soft or they can't accomplish certain goals within an organization. But in actuality, an empathic leader is actually one of the best leaders you can have, because this is someone who's always going to lead from a perspective of, if I were walking in your shoes, what would that be like? Someone who's going to still hold their team accountable. Sometimes people think of empathy, but not holding people accountable or being nice per se. That's not the point. With empathy, it's really about saying, I can understand where you're coming from, I can learn from you, and I can lean in. But I can still be a leader that expresses empathy, but still hold you accountable in terms of what we're meant to accomplish and what you're meant to accomplish as well. So that's what goes through my mind when I think about empathy as a superpower.
Awesome. Thank you. So again, for those watching, we are discussing empathy as a superpower, not a liability. And that was just Maxine Legal. And we're going to go to Brenda. Come on in, Brenda. And I can show your QR code. Look at this. I'm so proud of myself.
Oh, fun. That's great. Well, thank you, Misha, and thanks for the invitation to join you. For the purposes of your audience, hi, my name is Brenda Meller. My company is Meller Marketing, and I help the self-employed executives and corporate teams to get a bigger slice of the LinkedIn pie. When I think about the word empathy, I actually reflect upon like my corporate career, and it's almost, Misha, it's almost more memorable for me, the people who didn't have empathy than the ones who did. And those individuals always seem to come from a leadership mindset of leading through fear and intimidation, which tends to get better results in the short run, but in the long run can actually cause the company to not be successful. And I think about when I reflect back on some of those leaders, the ones who are still in leadership roles are the ones who practice empathy. The ones that really have great engagement with their leadership team, that have an engaged employee base within the organization. They're not out of touch with things, but they communicate, they care about the organization, they really care about its mission, vision, values. They're not just words on a wall. And I think even now, for those of us who are on this side of the fence, which is, self-employed, or as I like to call it, enthusiastically self-employed, when we are empathetic, working with our clients, when we listen to them, when we kind of imagine, what mindset that they're in and where they're coming from, when we listen just to listen instead of listening to respond, I think it helps us to be more successful in our roles and therefore more successful in being self-employed as well.
Yeah.
So how does that sound?
Hey, I mean, how did it feel to say it?
Yeah. I said it from the heart.
Right,
So,
exactly.
it is what it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good contribution
Mhm.
so far. Thank you. And Sarah Epping, come on in. Wait, where's your QR code? Oh my goodness, there it is.
Look
Okay.
at you with the technology, Misha. Good for you. Speaking of technology, glitches have worked themselves out. So apologies if I'm still a little glitchy. I am prepared to talk about whatever we need to talk about. So a brief reminder, if you would, please, for me.
Just a quick intro of who you are.
Hi.
And then when you hear the word empathy, what comes up for you?
So many things. Okay. So my name is Sarah Epping. I'm the principal and founder of Ashland Group, headquartered in Cleveland, but working with a global outreach. And we specialize in leadership coaching, talent. I like to say we are your partner in developing. I tell you, as a coach, I spend far more time coaching people around expressing empathy than I ever thought I would before. And I think it's because, one, empathy sounds really soft and squishy. And unfortunately, these days here it's been talked about as, but I believe that empathy is not just a necessary human skill, but is highly strategic for a couple of reasons. One, business, and every business is a relationship-based business these days. Every business is, and the best way for us to build and maintain rapport is by expressing empathy. And I think that empathy gets a really bad rap because most people talk about what they think empathy is. They couple that with, unfortunately, what empathy is not. What empathy is not is, it is not necessarily agreeing with the other person and their emotion or their viewpoints on something. Without agreeing with you at all. So I think that's a really important piece to the empathy puzzle. There are so many people that think I have to, in order to express empathy, I not only have to agree with you, frustrates you, or that you're not on board with, or the person who's frustrating you in the workplace, I have to go down that rabbit hole with you, and I have to get frustrated, and I have to throw that person under the bus right along with you in order to express empathy. And you don't have to do that, because people really just want to be heard and seen and respected and listened to. And that's really what empathy is. And it can diffuse a multitude of situations just by listening and being open.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate all of your shares, and I'll try my, hold on a second. Yep, I'll try my QR code. So I was really excited about this topic, and I just recently wrote actually my newsletter around it. But what I'm noticing is that oftentimes, and you all really plugged into it exactly, but oftentimes people think that empathy is an excuse. Empathy is like, if I care about this person, it means that it's okay that they don't show up to work on time. If I care about this person, it means it's okay if they get the report done 5 days later. And that's just not the case. Empathy is not an excuse. Empathy is not a pity call. Empathy is empowering connection so that people feel more motivated and have a larger desire to be within the organization, doing what the mission is for the organization, while also having some love and care and concern that maybe they've got a child in the ICU and they're exhausted because they didn't sleep a wink last night. It's not a yes, an and or, it's a yes and, right? It's not but or, it's like yes and. People can show up to work tired. People can show up to work frustrated. And having empathy doesn't mean, yeah, treat me like crap because you're having a hard day. No, no. It means I'm here for you if you want to talk about it. And we also need to show up and do what we got to do, or we need to take a mental health day. Right. And so for me, when I say the word empathy, and this is kind of what I'm going for here, when I say the word empathy, I kind of liked what you said, Sarah. It's like squishy, soft and squishy. But for me, it actually, I feel it from the top of my head down to my toes. It stops at my heart, it stops in my gut, and I actually feel the word inside of my entirety. Now, part of that is because I'm an empath. And so I feel a lot of things, right? And I also wanted to kind of talk about, I'm going to put this question in the chat for our listeners. And I don't know if someone's typing, if everyone could just make sure you're muted while you are not speaking, that would be really awesome. I want to put this question in the chat, and we're on YouTube, we're on LinkedIn. How has empathy supported your workplace? And that's for those of you watching. Really would love for you to engage with us and participate in. Could you please list the names of the speakers? Yes, I will absolutely. The 4 speakers' name is not listed. Oh no. Okay, we'll take care of that right away. I'm going to move. What I have to do is just move the title out. The question is there, and once the question disappears, you'll see everybody. So thank you so much for asking. And the question for the audience is, how has empathy supported your workplace? So I'm going to remove that. And that way we'll see everybody's names. Terrific. And hopefully you can see, yeah, everybody can like point at their name. This is who you are. And thank you to the person who asked for that. Really appreciate it. Oh, hey, Tim, thank you so much. Glad you're here. So type in the chat, those of you in the audience, how has empathy been helpful in your workplace? And I want to go around to ask the panelists, Brenda, Maxine, and Sarah, whoever would like to go first. We can rotate it around. How has empathy been helpful? Because all of us are self-employed, but we've all been in workplaces, whether we've been in the employee, we've been the consultant, we've been the coach, we've been, whatever it is, and we have our own workplace. And I will tell you, my boss, it's me. My boss sometimes doesn't have empathy for me. And I have to have a conversation like, excuse me, I'm doing a great job. Let's have some nice talk. Right. But I'm curious about all of you, and I can share afterwards. How does empathy show up in your workplaces, whether it's for yourself or for the people that are your clients? So who would like to go first?
I'll say this, if it's okay with Brenda and Sarah. Prior to running my own company, I worked in healthcare. And so one of the things that we really wanted to encourage people to do in healthcare is that concept of empathy. There are people who come in as clinicians, they have excellent skills, they're very good at what they do, but it really came down to how they communicate that to the patient or how they're able to communicate with their team members. And we found that empathy was critical for anyone who was working within a healthcare organization. In fact, I believe empathy is critical for anyone working in any organization because it does a few things. It cultivates psychological safety, right? And I think Brenda or Sarah said it earlier. When you have empathic leaders or an empathetic culture, you're going to retain more people. There's going to be better engagement because people feel heard and they feel valued. But as an entrepreneur, and again, I'm stealing from what either Brenda or Sarah said, a lot of what you have to do as an entrepreneur is you have to be able to listen and lean in. and really hear what your client is saying, and be able to empathize with them, so that what you're able to provide as an entrepreneur, the services that you're able to provide, will help them along their journey. And so when I think about empathy and the benefits, those are the things that really resonate for me.
Absolutely. Thank you for adding that, Maxine. And before we go on to the next, Tim, we have one LinkedIn user that said, "We are a family first organization, so employees feel supported while still being held accountable. However, any strength overused can become a weakness. Balance takes practice." Absolutely. Do y'all agree with that? 100% from me. Everything needs to be in balance. And however, we also need to define balance, because it's not necessarily 50-50, right? Balance is really about, what does the organization need? What do people need? There's this great image that talks about equity, which, oh my gosh, my show might get shut down because I mentioned the word equity. Anyways, is that, when you have 3 kids trying to watch a game, well, we can't give them each a balanced stepping stool, right? Because the short one won't be able to see off of that stool. So you give them a taller stool. That's also considered empathy and equity, equity and empathy. And then Tim wrote, "In my opinion, empathy requires a level of experience, understanding, maturity, and exposure to life and humanity." Yes. And then we also have psychological safety is so important. So before I go to the next 2, I want to put something out there, which we didn't address. And it's that, in my opinion, and also my experience, is that we cannot have empathy if we don't have emotional intelligence. And I say this everywhere I go. So empathy is a wonderful thing, but we cannot have empathy if we don't have emotional intelligence. We absolutely need to be aware of how we're feeling, why we're feeling what we're feeling, especially when other people are having feelings, so that we can go to respond as opposed to react. And that's a very deep component of empathy that a lot of people don't talk about. So back to my panelists, Brenda or Sarah, who would like to come in next?
I can jump in if that's okay with Brenda.
Sure.
Okay. So Misha, you just said something that I was like, oh, I want to get in there. I have some fun things to say about that. So I was also going to concur about the importance of emotional intelligence in this. In fact, when I do my emotional intelligence program and when I speak about emotional intelligence, a huge factor of that is empathy, because interpersonal skills are a critical piece of emotional intelligence. I also think it's important to talk about the 2 different power bases in an organization, but specifically in leadership. There's position power, which obviously comes from the fact that you have a position, you are authorized to make decisions, you have a title, but you also have personal power. And everyone can have personal power no matter where you sit in the organization. Well, guess which one gets you farther in your career, in your organization? It's the personal power, no matter who you are, no matter where you are in the organization. And oh my gosh, if you're a leader that has both, I cannot even tell you how much further you can go and how much influence you can have over the individuals in the organization, because they know that that's genuine, right? That's a genuine place of leadership. And that's leadership that comes from a place of caring. And I also want to share, I do a lot of reading when it comes to empathy and all that kind of stuff, and emotional intelligence, and really just self-care in general. And I love Brené Brown. I think so many people love Brené Brown and her work. And one of the things that Brené Brown says about empathy is empathy requires us to go to a place inside of ourselves where we felt something similar to that person who needs us to express empathy to them. And people who do not have the strength, haven't done the work, and don't want to go to that place are going to have a really hard time expressing empathy. And so it requires work on our part to be a very empathetic person. And the last thing I will say, just because it's very true and incredibly insightful, is something Brené Brown also says about empathy is, rarely does an empathetic response begin with the words "at least." right? So you're trying to put a silver lining around, well, at least, I got laid off. Well, at least you had that job for 20 years. Rarely does that begin, rarely does an empathetic response begin with the words at least. And so when I think about that, and when I think about when there's that person who I just have difficulty expressing empathy to, and I just want to brush it under the rug, what kind of response is truly an empathetic response? But back to why it is such a critical piece of success and supporting our organization. Again, I think it is a highly strategic skill, and it comes through being a caring, kind human being. And you got to do work. You have to develop that muscle within yourself. And there are people that are wired a little differently where it doesn't necessarily come naturally, and no harm, no foul, and absolutely no judgment. But know that about yourself and be a little intentional and take the time to work on creating those empathetic responses so that you are prepared to do those things.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. Absolutely. And there are some schools of thought that empathy is innate, and some schools of thought that are like, no, we got it. This is something to
That's
learn.
right.
And in the whole, when we talk about neurodivergence
That's
too,
right.
right? I mean, there are a lot of different people in the world, whether it's neurodivergence or just, social skills or whatever. So empathy is a challenging skill, and it is a skill, and it is a tool, and it is a fabulous practice that several of us, all of us here, somehow use in our workplace.
Absolutely.
Our workplace, and how we then nurture the workplaces that we go in and support. So thank you for that, Sarah. Brenda, come on in. Certainly not least.
I think back to when I worked in corporate, I felt like the best organizations, the best managers to work with were the ones that met with you one-on-one once a week. And at the beginning of that check-in, it was always, how are things going? And they would listen to what you said. They would see your mannerisms, oh, I'm all right. And the ones that wouldn't pick up on that, they'd go, okay, well, let's go through your project list versus everything okay? You want to talk about it? Like they would kind of like ask that question, like you gave them with that response, like something was going on and you may or may not wanted to talk about it, but even just asking everything okay, you want to talk about things first, it showed that they respected me as a person, and I felt like that strengthened the relationship with my manager, with my employer as well, versus the ones who just sometimes they came into those one-to-one meetings and it was a 30-minute scheduled meeting and they would announce right off the bat, I only have 15 minutes, so we're going to have to make this quick. And these are the things that I want to cover in the meeting. And then they would not let you go through what you needed out of the meeting. And they wouldn't, let alone, how are you doing? The small talk wasn't there at all, but it was their time. They cut the 30 minutes you had to 15 minutes. They got what they wanted out of the meeting, and they probably loaded you up with more work, told you what you weren't doing right, what you needed to do more of, what they wanted to see less of you doing. And then they kind of walked out of the room and you left that feeling even more drained when you went into the meeting. And that was an impact on productivity, on engagement. Like I only wanted to do what I needed to get done to not get caught, not like I was doing anything wrong, but to not get reprimanded or to not like make their list of things they didn't want me to do or that I didn't work on. I would only do that, but I think that's one way. And I think the people that need to watch this video, Misha, aren't watching it. Right.
Oh.
Sadly, but maybe the employees that are watching this, you will be a leader someday and you will have an opportunity to manage differently than you have been managed. All of the good leadership books say the same thing. That's the crazy part. It's not like this is a new concept. They all say the same thing. If you want to get better results out of your team, being empathetic is one of those, I think, those solutions to get there. But do the one-on-ones and ask the question in the beginning of your meetings, how are things going for you? And listen and hear what your employees are really saying there.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Brenda. And the other thing that you mentioned was how, they'll give you 15 minutes. Well, as far as I'm concerned, urgency causes chaos. And I tell that to my clients all the time. When you decide you're going to skip a beat, you're actually causing more trouble and damage for yourself down the line. When you take the time, in fact, I was working with a client not too long ago where they were talking about their clients being difficult. And I'm like, what if your clients were also struggling? And I heard back, and one of them said, you know what? I spent 2 hours with that struggling, difficult client. And now they just come to my office to say hello. They have not complained to me in over 3 weeks. So you take, how much time did we just save being empathetic? It's not that there was any problem to solve. They just wanted to be heard, right? And so it's really being willing to take that time to say, okay, I'm going to have those one-to-ones. I'm going to find out, what do you feel like you've done well? Where are the areas that you feel you need support or improvement? It's just really critical that we take that time. 42% of turnover could be avoided if we actually take the time to be with our people and find out what is happening here and how can we support you. So we are on the last 2 minutes. Thank you, everyone, for your feedback. And what I would love to do is just send the audience off with a question, which is, how has empathy been misused in your organization? We don't necessarily need to answer that as panelists, but I'm just giving it out there to the ether for whoever does watch this. And I know we do have people watching right now. How has empathy been misused? And when you think about it being misused, who decided that? Why is there even a question of, was empathy misused? So that was 3 questions. As a coach, I don't usually stack questions, but there you have it. I'm going to remove that and show who we are again today. Thank you to me. Thank you to Brenda. Thank you to Maxine. Thank you to Sarah. And whoops, Greg couldn't be here, but that's okay. And here we are discussing empathy in the workplace. I hope everybody can truly embrace that we are all leaders. When I say I do leadership training, it doesn't mean it's just the CEOs or the owners or the founders. Every single person in your organization is a leader. Give them that credit, that ownership, that accountability, that even they, when they show up, make an impact. That's called leadership. So, parting words. Who wants to give a parting word or 5?
I was doing a program at my church, and we were talking about how I was working with the young people, and I asked, how can we be kinder to those around us? And one of the young ladies came up and she said, everyone is fighting a battle. She said, be kind, because everyone is fighting a battle you know nothing about. And I was just like, thank you. And I heard the quote before, but I think hearing it from her, she's about 10 or 11 years old. But it was just a very impactful moment for me that I'm hearing this from a young person. I'm being reminded that it's so important for us to lead with empathy, because we really have no idea what people are going through. And it truly is a superpower, and we need empathy now more than ever before.
Yeah. Somebody in the audience said it's seen as weak. Right, because feelings, when people cry, they see that as, oh, we broke down. But actually, crying is courageous. In fact, there have been studies that have shown that people find connection in relationships much stronger when people share vulnerably. They feel disconnected when there's nothing there. That was a beautiful story. Thank you, Maxine. Who else? Parting words.
I just want to say I can't follow that out of the wisdom, the mouths of babes. I cannot follow that. And the kids are all right. I feel like that is a story of just the kids are doing it differently than we are. Thank goodness. I want to thank you, Misha, for hosting this incredibly important conversation and for including me and all of us here, to welcome us here today to talk about this. I think this is really important. It's always been important, but it's more important now more than ever. And I want to touch on something you said earlier as my closing thought, which is, please don't feel any amount of shame if you struggle with this, if you struggle with expressing empathy. As you pointed out, it is a skill that we can build and we can work on. And there's things that you can do in order to build that skill. Be aware of your own biases. We all have them. I don't care how good of a person you are. We all have inherent bias just by our experiences. Ask other people how you're doing in terms of expressing empathy. And with the right people, they will tell you. And be open to hearing that, and spend a little time thinking about how you could do do things differently and express empathy better.
Yes, absolutely. I really love the plug-in around no shame.
No shame.
No
None.
shame. It's, we all have to learn what we've got to learn, and
Right.
it takes us different time to do it, and find the support. If it's something you want to
Right.
grow, get the support to grow it.
Right. And don't fake it if you can't.
People-
And if you don't want to, don't fake it just because you think you should. But if you want to, hashtag no judgment.
Hashtag no judgment. Absolutely. Thank you so much. All right. Brenda, come on in.
I just want to say, this is what, am I pointing the right way? This is what Misha specializes in. So if this doesn't feel like your lane, this is making you feel awkward. Like, all of us specialize in different things within our own business, but this is what Misha specializes in. So reach out to her, get in a conversation, and there was so many things we talked about, but I also heard, how does this affect bottom line productivity, employee turnover? So it's a numbers game as well, and it can impact your business. So don't be shy about reaching out, following Misha, look at her resources she has, maybe schedule a discovery call with her as well. So just a little plug for you there.
I didn't pay her to say that. Y'all are great. No, I want to say, I invite really wonderful people to the panel, right? I know you three. I've been in either the same room. I've either spoken on stages with you. We know each other, and that's why. And Greg, we just spoke at an event together, and I wish he had made it today. The whole idea of these panels, if you want to get to know me and you want to have a voice out on these panels, please reach out to me, because I'm inviting panels for different discussions. What I do want to share, and thank you, Brenda, that was awfully kind of you. I was not expecting that. So next time will be August 11th, same time. Who knows which panelists we'll have, so stay tuned. But we're talking about what is the real corporate fit. I have a little beef with the corporate fit. So we're going to have a conversation of what is the real corporate fit. I want to thank everyone who watched the live version and commented. Thank you, Tim and Natalie and Iris. And I think there was even someone else. I didn't catch the name quick enough. Let me see if I can find it real quickly. No, I can't. Oh, Jennifer. Thank you to all of you who were here on the live. And we look forward to hearing from the people who were on the replays. And Sarah, Maxine, Brenda, thank you. Thank you for sharing. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.